Leaders, real life leaders.
Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. And I'm so excited because I don't have one guest. I've got two. I've got the dynamic duo. I've got Chris and Eric Martinez from Dynamic Fit Pros, and they have some things really mastered. They want to help coaches get up to $10,000 every month or more without a lot of complicated tech. And they're going to talk about how to build your audience, how to coach people, how to get through dark times, how to build your sales funnel, and so much more. So Chris and Eric, welcome.
Chantel, that's a heck of an intro. So thank you so much. And for the viewers that are watching this on video, right? I mean, there's two of us, and I mean, our eyebrows are taking up the entire Zoom screens.
Well, guess what? The three of us are, because they always used to tell me I look like Brooke Shields because my eyebrows, I was born when she was like a big hit, and my eyebrows actually right now are a little tamer than they normally are because I just got them done. But if I don't do anything with them, they're like double the size. And so like the three of us, you guys have to go online and watch us. We're like the eyebrow club here.
Exactly. Yeah, but we're doing well. Thank you so much for having us on your show. And it was just good connecting before we hit the record button.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So let's talk first about building your audience, because I think, first of all, one of the things that I hear people talk about all the time is they want to be so broad. And I love that you guys have kind of niched down. And I want to talk about how you created your niche and the pros of finding your niche and how to build your audience.
Okay. Do you want me to take that, Chris, or do you?
Yeah, I'll take it off right here.
Okay.
So I'm Chris. I'm the younger brother by 1 minute. So yeah, that's a great question, Chantel. So I think too, like what happens is the way this is kind of like evolved, I've seen in the past, like, decade, just being in this is just a lot of people that are looking to get into this, they want to build their audience overnight, which is, it's just not going to happen, and a lot of people do want to go broad, like you said, but when you go broad, it's like, you have to understand that you have to master, your craft and a specialty, and to be able to like go broad like that. So it's always better to just like niche down a little bit, because you could focus on what's this acronym called AMO, right? That's your audience. So that's exactly who that niche is, that avatar that you're speaking to. The M is your messaging. The messaging has to match like the niche and the avatar, or else you're speaking to the whole entire world. And if you're in this business and you're trying to build an audience, you have to understand your avatar and your niche's pain points, their wants, their desires, their aspirations, all that stuff. And that leads to the O, which is your offer. If you have your audience dialed in, if you have your messaging dialed in, that's going to make your offer so much more easier to be able to sell and at a high premium, So really, it's just, I'd rather recommend just going like just, small. And then once you master that niche and you kind of dominate that and become a kingpin, then it's like, okay, then you can start broadening out and helping people out.
Yeah, I love that. And I have another podcast called Waste Away Through Intermittent Fasting. And there's so many health podcasts out there, but in the intermittent fasting space, I am either number one or number two, depending on the day. And the reason is because my title is Waste Away Through Intermittent Fasting. And that's the title. And so if anyone is interested in intermittent fasting, my podcast comes up either number one or number two. And so because I made the decision to go super, super niche and say, okay, I'm going to do intermittent fasting, I naturally went, to intermittent. I went up on the scales for intermittent fasting so far up. I mean, we have over 3 million downloads on that in a very short amount of time. And so I think people, what their fear is if I go too niche, it's kind of like, someone who maybe they're a plastic surgeon and they only specialize in boob jobs. And then they would say, well, I don't want to go that niche, but it actually goes the reverse. They actually end up, because they're so niche, it makes it the reverse. So a good friend of mine is a counselor, And she did every kind of counseling there was. She did grief counseling and teenagers and adolescents. And I said to her, I said, what do you like to do the best? And she said, honestly, my favorite is marriage counseling. And we talked about it. And I said, well, then you need to switch to, you are a marriage counselor. That's what you do. And then she popped up number one. And now all she does is that. And she's so much happier. So talk about that for just a moment.
Yeah. So with that, Chantel, it's the same exact thing, kind of like with our health and fitness coaches, right? Is a lot of people will be like, well, why do I have to sit there and have like a niche or an avatar, right? Why can't I just like help everybody out that wants like weight loss and wants to build muscle, right? But it's the same exact kind of concept in the story that you're telling me, right? Because they're speaking to too many people. When they put their social media content out there, it's not hitting people's like wants, pain points, frustrations, desires, right? So it's different. If you're talking to like a pain point with like a busy dad that wants to get his, his physique back from like college, and then opposed to a mom that maybe just had like, a baby or something like that and wants to get her sexy back. It's two different audiences, two different messagings, two different pain points, aspirations, desires. And it's going to be two different offers at the end of that, So that's why, we recommend niching down too. And like that, why that kind of correlates with the story that you told me with, the counselor.
Yeah. And I think too, just to elaborate on that, I think when you're going into like building an online business or anything, right, we're all kind of thinking like, oh gosh, I need to have this like massive following. I have to, be omnipresent everywhere. I have to have all these different eyeballs, which, that is a good thing as you grow. And obviously that's what you do want to aspire to. But, when, like Chris said, if you really dial in your niche, who you're speaking to, it's almost kind of like, all you need is like that 100 perfect people. If you have 100 perfect people that are sitting there that know, like, and trust you and are raving fans, they're going to sit there and, invest in your guys' program or product and what you do. And you're going to do okay, as a business owner.
So I want to hear your story. Tell us a little bit of background, like what got you started? How did you move? So I'm assuming, did you guys start out as personal trainers and then move into this new niche?
Yeah, we did. I'll take the listeners back to kind of like literally what our whole story was. So we grew up in Northern California in a really, really good, family. And my father was a correctional officer at San Quentin State Prison. So we unfortunately lost him at the age of 17. So it was 3 days before Christmas, and we got a knock on the door from a California Highway Patrol officer. And honestly, like I thought I was still dreaming and just like I was trying to wake up, but I saw my mom on her knees screaming. And it's because they told her that he fell asleep behind the wheel. So at that young age, our whole life just like flipped a 360. And then 3 months later, my mom lost her mom due to cancer. So it was like a huge spiral to where we feel like we lost like a huge part of our mom. We lost a big part of ourselves. Our whole family was just like, just like crumbled, and we were all lost. We were all grieving, and we were all very young. We didn't know how to deal with all these emotions at such a young age. So the biggest outlet for Chris and myself was the gym. That was our way to like alleviate just like stress, like anger, hit the iron, see body compositional changes, help it with our stress and anger and frustration. So that's what got us into the gym. And then after that, we hired an online coach by the name of Dr. Lane Norton very early on. And we saw he was doing online coaching through nutrition coaching, training, customized exercise programs, all that stuff. And we were like, wow, like we put two and two together. Like if he's doing this, there's two of us, and, if we could build a business and kind of replicate the same thing. So we went on to get all of our certifications, just, strength and conditioning, nutrition, all that. And we started our first business, which was called Dynamic Duo Training back in 2011. And that was just solely to just help people with online coaching. And then that's really what brought us up to here. The last 4 years, we've been doing B2B coaching for health and fitness coaches do the same.
So one of the things that I saw is that you are doing a lot of online coaching. And one of the things that makes me think of is that, when you think of fitness, you think, okay, I need someone to come to the gym with me. But talk about how you've transformed this into an online business.
Yeah. So we saw that early on as kind of like us, right? So like the first person that we hired, which was our first coach, we were just like, oh, well, how do we hire an online coach if we're not there? How's he going to help us? And once we saw how he delivered that through like, it was old school. We're talking 2011. He delivered it through like, what's called PDFs and just check-ins through video and just like, text messages. So we saw kind of like where this could go. And if like, once like technology started to innovate, it was easier to have like, apps, like better delivery forms and just getting that experience, to really help and connect with people. So that's where we really saw kind of like, hey, there's a need for this, that you don't have to be right there next to somebody to coach them through health and fitness to get them results.
But it's also too, Chantel, like Eric missed a part of it from 2009, 2011. We did in-person personal at a small gym, right? And that's where we kind of like figured out what the problem is with the in-person training, to where it's a broken business model. You're trading time for dollars. You're working 60 hours a week as a personal trainer, a split schedule from literally like 6 a.m. till like 10. And you have a gap all the way till like, 4, all the way till like 8 p.m, right? So, and then you'd have people that would no show, there'd be no continuity program within it. You'd be tapped out on how much you can charge per hour, per session, all that stuff. So that's where we hired like Dr. Lane Norton in 2011. We saw how he did his whole business model. We're like, how do we build this into a hybrid and start off slow, where we're like literally doing the in-person training part-time, but then we're starting the online coaching as well too. And then really take it to another level, because he was a great coach. I have a ton of respect for him, but there's a lot of stuff that we saw that he was doing to where like, there's two of us, we really care about our clients and we can make the delivery part with videos, audio, all that stuff like 10X.
And now a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Chantel Realty.
One of the other things we give you is revenue share, where you get 5 levels of money in your downline every time you attract an agent to the company. And guess what? The first 3 levels open up right away. So let's pretend like you're not a great recruiter, but you bring on a couple people who are heavy hitters. Guess what? You don't have to hire 5 or 10 agents to open up those tiers. You automatically get those. So that's what makes us very different.
This is Chantel.
So describe how you are doing that. Kind of explain a little bit more in detail. How are you making it online and having still that personal feel?
Yeah. So what we teach like our students, right, basically is you cannot be that coach where it's like you are just hiding behind a keyboard, right? So you have to give them access also to like, whether it's a WhatsApp, whether it's like an Instagram DM, whether it's a text message. And that's just because people at the end of the day are buying coaches, not coaching, right? So you're in the relationship business, you're in the accountability business, you're in the camaraderie business, the community business, you're in the business of solving problems. You just happen to be like a health and fitness coach that has a specialty and a gift to be able to get people in shape with like nutrition, coaching, whatever it is, right? So that's the first thing that people got to buy into. But what the delivery aspect though is, once you figure out how you want to deliver your online training and nutrition program, these days there's softwares out there to where it's like you can have people download an app, they show the exercise on there, the reps and sets, there's a video component to it. There's nutrition apps on there where they give you grocery lists, they give you your macros, all those type of things. But really the way you kind of deliver this is you have an accountability system, which we recommend is every single week, 15 to 20 minute check-in. This could be through email, can be through audio, through WhatsApp. It could be through a video component, Zoom. It could be through FaceTime. And that's what you're doing, is really just coaching them every single week, the accountability aspect, making sure that they're dialed into their nutrition, making sure they're getting all their workouts in. And then every single month, you're just tweaking some things in their program, all depending on what their goal is. Is it losing 10 pounds, 20 pounds? Is it building muscle mass, right?
One of the things we talked about before we hit record is one of the things that you love to talk about is how to make it through the dark times. And it's funny because my son and I were going through pictures the other day. I have a video of it with me and him doing it because I thought it was so cute. And he was like, "What is this picture?" And it was actually, I used to be a photographer for Olin Mills when I was very, very young. And, we had real cameras and you guys are too young. You probably don't even know what that's like. But my son's only 11. And I said, we can pull out these cell phones. And the cell phone takes this really, really high quality picture. Like my cell phone is, I have a really high quality picture that I can take. I said, but not that long ago, you'd have to take a picture with like a real camera. You'd have to take the film out, right? I worked for Olin Mills. And we had a dark room, and the dark room is where the pictures could be developed. And, if you got too much exposure, it ruins the image. And so, anyone who's an overnight success, I always ask, like, but where was the dark room where God kind of developed your character? Because it's really in those dark times where people actually grow. And it's a season where God develops you into who the person that he wants you to be. And it sounds like at a very young age, God put you guys through some of those dark times. And I want you to kind of describe what those dark moments kind of helped produce for you and kind of made this high quality picture.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad you just like touched on all that stuff. And this is definitely like just something powerful that I love to talk about, because you're right. I mean, God will put you through, tough seasons, tough tests to really just see where your faith is at too. And he did that to us early on. And I think for us too, we grew a lot of resentment towards God, our faith, when that happened, because we didn't know any better. But to really just answer your question, I think that you have to just trust the process with it. And something my pastor says right now that really sticks with me is he says that you have to grow there before you go there. So you have to grow through tough situations in order to go there, to get to those new levels, because every new level is going to be, produce a new devil. I truly believe that. So by what we can do every single day, Chantel, if we're going through these tough seasons, is we can control our thinking, our being, and our doing. So what that really consists of is, your thoughts, your attitudes, and your actions every single day. So I really think that you could control all those things. And if you can control your thoughts, have a good positive attitude, and really be persistent and take action on your goals and stuff, then you can 100% get through any tough season. So that's just my take on that.
I love that so much. I'm trying to grow my own little farm, and I have a good friend. Her name's Farmer Ashley. She owns a farm about 20 minutes away, and I planted some mint and some basil, and everything was getting overgrown. And she actually sent her boys to help come and prune my bushes. And, I was thinking, the only way to get something to grow is actually to prune it. And, I had some basil back there, and it was starting to grow some flowers. And I was realizing they had told me, look, you have to prune this. If you don't prune it, it won't grow. And we all think that pruning is punishment, but it's not. Just because God's putting you through some pruning, it's actually a reward of having something of value, because God knows that you're valuable. And you don't prune a dying bush, right? Yeah. Like I had one mint tree that was completely dead, and they said, hey, we've got to pull this whole thing out. We can't prune it, because no one prunes a dying bush. So talk about kind of some of the pruning that you guys have gone through that has really kind of made you grow and made you flourish.
Yeah, I would definitely say like that was one of the biggest ones, was losing our father. The other thing too is like, it's actually a season that we're going through right now. And I'm not afraid to be 100% like transparent and real about this. And last year we came off of like literally our biggest year in this business. And this year we've gone through a whole season of pruning. And we have not changed one thing, Chantel. I would be first person to be like, take extreme ownership if I did something wrong in the business. And we were pulling our hair out for about a couple of months, literally just like, what did we do wrong? Just literally trying to figure everything out. We didn't do anything wrong. And we had to just face the reality to where it's just like, this is bigger than like what we are actually doing in the business. This is God working up there, and it's pruning season. And it feels like, to be 100% honest, he's been tearing the house down all year long. And this has literally been the year where it's tested our faith and our belief so much to where, man, it has been hard. It has been hard. We've literally wanted to just like say, F this, throw the towel in, like move on to something else. Like after 13 years, like this is going to happen to us, like that type of mentality. But man, like we're in the right place at the right time with the right people, and the right, like, people at church, and being led by our spiritual father, Pastor Keith Kraft. And our strength has never been, so strong, like with our faith muscles, to literally keep pressing forward every single damn day and just put it in God's hands and just do what we can do. and we know he's going to have our back and that he's going to have us at the end of the day. And we just can't see it right now, but there's something bigger and greater out there for us.
Yeah. And just really quick to add to that, Chantel, this is a good point for entrepreneurs, right? Because some might be in different seasons right now. Some might be beginning, some might be, advanced, and it's a roller coaster. And you know that, I know, that, you're going to go through ups and downs. It's like, you're going to eat shit, for lack of better words. But you have to keep pushing forward. Right. And remember that this is not about you. It's about helping other people. So that's another thing. You have to make your mission about serving and helping other people. It's bigger than you. So that'll keep you going every single day. But again, like, all we can do is literally just like get up and control what we can control and not stress what we can't. The rest of it, it's like we have to just roll with it, and figure it out and keep going back to the drawing board, keep putting yourself around other bigger thinkers, people that are going to sit there and bring you back to life and, speak positive stuff into you. So there's so many things that go into just like the game of entrepreneurism, but it's really what it is. It's a game. It's like, how do I keep advancing to the next level and staying in there? And most of it is going to be, I want to say, like, it's 80% of your mindset, because if your mindset ain't right, your business ain't going to be right.
I think the thing that's really helped me, and I'm so glad that you guys shared that today, because I feel like this year has been really hard for me as well. And I feel the same way. It's been a really difficult year. And for me, I have to say to myself that the struggles that I'm going through are ordained by God. And if I can really say, like, God, I know that you've orchestrated this for my good, even though I don't see it right now, but it helps me to not be bitter.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes me go, okay, God, you've got some character issues maybe that I've got to work through. I've got some other things that I have to work through. And I'll give you an example. When I was younger, my mom, my dad left when I was about 12 and really like 10. He was actually never around. I don't even know why I'm saying that. Like, he was just in and out and in and out. And my mom was one of these people who never stood up for herself. So for example, if the restaurant was, they didn't have our order ready and it'd be like 45 minutes. And I'd be like, Mom, I'm starving. Like, can you check on our food? And she'd be like, will you say something? I don't want to say anything. So at 10 years old, I'd be like, excuse me, can you check on our food? And everyone used to say, well, Chantel will take care of it. Let Chantel do that. Let Chantel lead that. And I really got to the point where my mom always let me lead. And it's helped me, because my dad wasn't in the picture. It's created me to be the leader that I am today, because I like to be in charge. I like to take charge. And I don't think that would ever happen if my dad was actually around when I was younger.
Yeah.
And so, I really don't know anybody who has become major without going through some real smashing. It's kind of like grapes turning into wine. Like, it's like grapes don't cost that much money. And the only way that they turn into something really amazing is being crushed into wine. And I feel like for you guys, I can just see that so much. Is there any other examples this year that you have said, this happened and this is how it actually has helped us grow, either personally or helped your business grow?
Well, I think just too, what Chris just talked about, just that season, right? You come off like a high, and because you're at different income levels and stuff, and you're excited going to that next year, like, oh, I'm going to double that. I'm going to triple that. And maybe I think we might have lost sight of certain things. And maybe that was, just a sign to just like, show a little bit more humbleness and more just like, gratitude. And because maybe if like, I'm a big believer, if you're not humble and you don't have, gratitude, it's like, you're not going to be more abundant. Once that abundance comes, it's like, how are you going to handle that? So that's the only thing I could really think of when it comes to like this example in this season we're at, that maybe it was just a little bit more humbling that we needed. And maybe it's just, again, God testing us through this tough season to be like, okay, like, I just need to test your level of faithfulness to myself. Let me put you through this dark time, this dark storm. And are you still going to be there for me? Are you still going to show up on a day-to-day basis and put me first and do life the way I want you to do it, not the way you guys want to do it?
Yeah, it's good.
Well, I think that one of the things that I have a friend of mine who lives out in Texas, and he was a great guy before and I liked him, but he actually like had gone through a divorce, and it was like one thing after another. He had like all these really like terrible things happen to him. And then we got to know each other a little better. And finally, you know what I said to him? I said, I liked you before, but now that you've gone through all this nightmare, I said, I actually really, really like you now, because I can relate to you. Before you were a little bit arrogant, you were a little bit pompous, and I still liked you. It's not that I didn't like you, but man, what God has now developed in you from you going through all that junk. Now I really, really, really like you.
Yeah.
And so that's a really good place to be, is when you don't like it at the time, but it is nice to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is why it's like so important too. Like, if I don't like the word thought leader, I like the word actually kind of like action leader, right? If you're an action leader out there and you're leading an audience and you're out there on social media, you have a podcast, you have a YouTube channel, social media following, you have to share what you're walking through, right? You can't be that person where it's just like, oh, nothing's really happened to me. I've never been through anything. You don't want to be that type of person where you're always a Debbie Downer sharing. Like for us, it'd be kind of a turn off if I was always saying, oh, every single week reminding the audience that I lost my father. I would never do that. But you have to sit there and remind people. Sometimes they'd be like once a month, every quarter, whatever, that you went through some of this stuff, because it's like what you said, Chantel, that people are relating to you. And that's really what this game of business is like, it's buying relatability, it's buying relationships, right? And if they can't relate with you or have like this relationship with you, then they're not going to probably end up doing business with you. So it's really important to always kind of share what you're walking through, like in your life, whether it's good or whether it's bad.
And then one last point to that, like just for those listening, the audience, because again, we do sit there and consume, we do follow other influencers, like all these iconic people. But at the end of the day, it's like, instead of always like following their mouth and everything they're talking about, like watch their feet, watch the way they move instead. Like, are they really walking the walk and doing what they're saying they're doing? So oftentimes we just always, follow what's coming out of their mouth and not really, following their feet.
I love that. And what I heard you say is part of building your audience is being really transparent. And I feel that transparency coming through the Zoom call with you today. Talk about some other tips of what you can do practically to build your audience.
Yeah, I think honestly, I mean, it really just comes down to just like an exercise we take our students with it's called like the 5 pillars of know, like, and trust, right? How do you really turn a friend or a stranger to a friend to a buyer? That's what we're trying to do with building an audience. So you could create just 5 pillars, right? What are these 5 pillars that you stand by? It could be health, could be wealth, could be relationships, could be something of interest that you stand by, could be your core values. So that's a great way to start, building up, who it is that you stand by, and how do you, what's it called, connect with other people by these 5 pillars. When you have these 5 pillars, you can start distributing content all around those things and talking about different things. So that's a great way to do it. Also too, you could do like a brain dump of just just personal things about you, just don't be afraid to write down, what have you gone through? What are your interests? Why do you like coaching people? Why do you like doing real estate? Why do you do the profession that you like to do? What's the underlying reason? Brain dump and all that stuff, and then start doing some reels, start creating some pictures, doing some swipe files, going live, do some stories. I mean, that's honestly the best way to do it. Just get your hands dirty and just, again, get better and better. There's a great, quote out there. It says every master was once a disaster, right? So, you're going to be a disaster at first, probably with all this stuff, but you have to just put in the sets and reps to become a master at some point.
I love that. I would say that for me, I had a real estate business that was just local in Hampton Roads, and it was just here, and we were doing extremely well. We were so profitable. We were so well known here. I didn't have to do anything. And as I started rising more to the top and to the top and to the top, I had just a lot of people who were just talking so bad about me. And they were just, really just talking trash and things that just weren't true and all this stuff. And I have to remind myself, there's a story in the Bible about Joseph, and it said, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. And I always remind myself, but God, but God intended it for good. And, I think that for me personally, I had everything went. It had all these people didn't talk trash and this didn't have bad things happen. I would never. Now we're in 19 states across the country. We're now a more online virtual platform where we can grow so much faster. And had everything been so perfect, I would still be running the same small business here locally in Virginia, and I wouldn't be in 19 states. And so I really want to hear kind of what drove you to saying, okay, I'm just going to be a personal trainer here in California, right? Just one-on-one. I'm only reaching a small amount of people that way. God has designed me to do something bigger. I'm going to reach out so I can not just be here locally, I can scale and go across the country. Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, really, it was this story where we hired our first mentor. That's why we're so big on mentorship, because it gives you that hope and it gives you that certainty that somebody went through that already and that they've kind of paved that path and they can accelerate that learning curve for you. So it was, I think it was 2008, and we were flipping through like a muscular development magazine. You remember the magazines like this?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm telling you, there's no coincidence. This was God. And this is when our faith wasn't even that high. But I feel like our Father even kind of had something to do with that, to where he wanted us to be in that magazine on that page, right, along with God. But we opened it up and we were flipping through it, and we happened to come up on Dr. Lane Norton's column, and we read through it. And he was a natural bodybuilder, so it piqued our interest because we're like, oh, we're never going to do steroids or PEDs or anything like that. So we're like, man, this guy's jacked. He's got a PhD. And then his call to action at the end was, if you want online services like that, there was his email. So we're like, hey, this is awesome. What the heck? We sent him an email, and then he got back to us. And then that was the first coach that we hired that literally kind of did the online coaching for us. So we saw that. We're like, man, this is awesome. We're doing personal training here, and this guy's doing online coaching from Florida, but he's in different cities, different states, traveling, doing all this stuff, and he's profitable. We're like, man, there's two of us. We're pretty good guys. We care. We just got to learn about nutrition and training a little bit more, but we could do this. So that's kind of where that gave us really that hope and that certainty and kind of that system and that pathway to be able to do this. And that's where it all started. If it wasn't for him, if it wasn't for that muscular development magazine, I don't know, to be 100% honest, where we'd be at.
Yeah. And it was just, after that, it was just hiring more mentors, more coaches, putting yourself around bigger thinkers, just expanding your mindset. And that's really where things took off.
So if someone is listening to this, and I can think of 3 friends of mine who are personal trainers that all they do is really just do the one-on-one, maybe they do a couple of group sessions with people, but mostly where they're getting the most of their business is just one-on-one training. Cast the vision of what they could be doing. Talk about that for just a minute and actually give them practical tips of what someone would do from taking it from just a personal training business one-on-one to now reaching a bigger crowd.
Yeah. The biggest things that sticks out to me is it's the 4 I's. That's what we practice and preach in our program. It's, they would create more income. They'd create more impact, more influence, and more independence for themselves by going online. And we always stress in person's great, do both of them if you can, but it's everything's going online right now. So why would you sell yourself short of reaching more people with your God-given talents? You can get so much more people out of pain. If you know how to go online, you have a proven system and everything's just set up for success. There's so many people out there that need you. So I would paint that picture, and literally it's just about getting started. The biggest thing is it's limiting beliefs from personal trainers. It's the fear of, getting started, the fear of failure, imposter syndrome, It's a scarce money mindset. So those are all huge ones that really pop out and what hold them back. So that would be really what I would say is by going online, you're going to create more income, impact, influence, independence for yourself, and you're going to help more people.
And I'll give you some tangible steps. Like, let's just say that like it's one of your personal trainer friends, right? So maybe they have like maybe 20 clients in person. Where I would start with them is be like, you know what, start off with a little beta test, like a pilot group to go online, create an 8 to 12 week program, right? And you have your buyers that are right there warm, right? Because they're in person, they trust you already, and just tell them you're testing out an online program. You create and design the training program, the nutrition program, the accountability system, whether it's weekly, whether it's like bi-monthly, all those things, the deliveries, PDFs, or if you want to do a software, all those type of things, and just start with them and test out like your proven like theories and concepts as a coach with training and nutrition, get them tangible results. And then you have case studies and testimonials right there that you could start building on social media. And really that's where it kind of like begins, because then you're going to fine tune and tweak everything from like this pilot group.
I love that. Well, we are out of time, but I have enjoyed every second of this podcast with both of you, and I've fallen in love with both of you in such a short amount of time. And I wish we had more time to connect, but tell listeners where they can find you and where they can follow you.
Absolutely. Yeah. The best place is going to be Instagram. So at Chris and Eric Martinez. And then we have a podcast too. It's called the Dynamic Lifestyle Podcast. So those are probably the two best places that you can find us. We have a lot of good resources in our link tree and our bio on Instagram. So yeah, that'd be the best places.
Oh, I love that. Well, you guys stay tuned. We've got another episode coming up in just a few. Bye-bye for now.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Real Life Leadership. If you'd like to get the show notes or access more resources, log on to reallifeleaders.com/podcast to get the show notes from this episode and any other resources we might have mentioned. And also, we'd love to hear from you. Be sure to review or rate this podcast on Apple Podcasts to help spread the word. And if you have any leadership questions you want answered, email podcast@reallifeleaders.com.